Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Our current session is particularly about nouns and pronouns in Old English. I hope by the end of this session you will be familiar with the nouns and pronouns that were used in Old English and how they were different from the current nouns and pronouns that we find in modern English. One of the distinct features that I want to talk about when it comes to the nouns of Old English is that the inflection of Old English noun indicates distinctions of number, that is, singular and plural, and it also indicates the case. Case system is somewhat simpler than that of Latin and some of the other Indo-European languages when we compare it with Old English. Thus, the Old English noun has only 4 cases. The endings of these cases vary with different nouns, but they fall into certain broad categories or declensions. Well, in fact, in Old English, there is a vowel declension and a consonant declension, also called the strong and weak declensions, according to whether the stem ended in Germanic in a vowel or a consonant. And within each of these types, there are certain subdivisions. Of course, we cannot cover all of them here. It is not possible to present them all here, but I would just give you a feel of how it worked. Here I have on the screen 2 examples of strong declensions and one of the weak. Please notice this word. The modern word stone in the Old English here. A masculine, a stem. Notice this word, modern word gift, that's a feminine, and notice hunta, a masculine consonant stem that is used here. Forms are given for the 4 cases: nominatives, genitives, datives, and accusatives. This nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative are these, by the way, here. These ones. All right? So, if you have any know-how, the basic know-how of the syntax of any language, then you would be able to understand what all these terms mean, though it is not possible to explain each of these here. What I want you to notice is that how the forms of nouns varied when they shifted from one case to the other. You can also notice what happens when it moves on to the plural case as compared to what you saw in the singular case on the previous slide. My dear students, I would say that inflection of the noun was much more elaborate in Old English than it is today. I would just give an idea of when I say it was much more elaborate in the past and it is comparatively restricted in the modern English. I would just give you a comparison with Urdu, by the way. For example, the noun ladki. We have different forms that are used in different sentence structures: ladki, ladkiyan, and ladkiyon. Now compare these 3 possibilities with the only 2 possibilities that we have in English, the modern English: girl and girls. We don't have any third possibility. All right? So now if you consider the case of Old English, you would realize that there were so many possibilities for all the different types where it was to be used that the modern English does not resemble Old English in that sense. With this, I move on to the pronouns. As far as the Old English pronouns are concerned, from the frequency of its use and the necessity for specific references, the personal pronoun, I would say, in all languages is likely to preserve a fairly complete system of inflections. Like, for example, in Urdu, we have main, mujhe, mera, meri. and you also, I'm sure, know the modern equivalents of all that in modern English. But when it comes to Old English, it shows this tendency not only in having distinctive forms for particularly all genders, persons, and cases, but also in preserving, in addition to the ordinary two numbers, singular and plural, a set of forms for two people or two things, the dual number. So, for example, in Urdu we have tum for one, aap for plural, but in English, modern English, we have you. Now, if we think of the Old English, actually it was very interesting that it provided three possibilities. One for the singular, like we have tum, the other for the plural, like aap, or like we have main and hum for singular and for plural. And like in modern English, we have I and we. However, it is very interesting that apart from this singular and plural, there was a third category of pronouns, the availability of pronouns that was for two people. So, for one person, for two people, and for more than two people, that is for plural. This is how pronouns were available in Old English. Indo-European had separate forms for the dual number in the verb as well. And these appear in Greek and to a certain extent in Gothic as well. However, they are not found in Old English, and the distinction between the dual, that is for the two, and the plural was disappearing even from the pronouns in the Old English. So this particular feature of for singular, for dual, and for plural, out of these, the dual one, gradually it vanished, and even during the times of Old English, it started vanishing. I am going to show you some of these dual forms just to have a look at in the table. Here you can see, if you notice, the singular forms, the dual forms, and the plural forms. And by the way, these are again those nominatives and genitives and all those, the four divisions that I have already talked about. So think of within each of these three categories, how many possibilities are given here that were available.